The boy had not spoken a single word in 8 months. Not to therapists, not to teachers, not to the house staff, not even to the man who commanded the entire skyline of Chicago with his billion-dollar company. He lived in silence, hiding behind a curtain of fear the world could not penetrate. But on the morning that would change everything, 10-year-old Ethan Carter stood in front of his private school gates with his hands trembling, his eyes empty, and his father completely unaware that a miracle was about to walk into their lives, holding a pink lunchbox and humming a tune off key. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that heal the heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps us create more inspiring stories for you. Ethan had been known as the quiet boy long before the tragedy. Growing up as the only son of Marcus Carter, the cold-faced CEO of Carter Dynamics, he was surrounded by wealth but starved of warmth. His mother had been the soft voice in his life, the one who coaxed him out of shadows. When she died suddenly in a car accident that he witnessed from the back seat, Ethan's world collapsed into pieces too sharp to touch. The boy simply stopped speaking. Words hurt too much. Silence was safer. Marcus tried to fix things the only way he knew. Hire specialists, enroll Ethan in elite programs, build a therapy room inside their penthouse. But he never tried to sit beside his son and simply breathe with him. He didn't know how. Every time he saw Ethan's vacant eyes, he saw his own failure reflected back, and he buried himself in work, drowning in meetings and numbers, pretending he wasn't losing his son one day at a time. But fate, in its strange, gentle way, had already begun arranging the pieces of something unexpected. On the other side of Chicago, in a modest apartment above a tiny hardware store, lived Daniel Brooks, a single father who worked two jobs and still somehow managed to be at every school event, every bedtime story, every scraped knee, every whispered dream. His daughter, Lily Brooks, was sunshine wearing sneakers, loud, awkward, creative, and absolutely impossible to ignore. The kind of child who painted kindness in places people forgot existed. She and Ethan had never met until that morning. It was their first day at Ridgeway Academy, the elite school Daniel managed to get Lily into through a scholarship he had fought for with every ounce of grit he had. He wanted her to have opportunities he never did. He couldn't give her expensive things, but he could give her hope, and Lily took that hope and wore it like armor. The moment they stepped onto campus, surrounded by cars that cost more than their apartment building, Daniel felt the sting of being out of place, but Lily didn't. She walked with a confidence made entirely of innocence, waving at everyone, skipping toward the school doors as if she owned the place. And then she noticed Ethan. He stood alone near the old oak tree, staring at the ground, hugging his backpack like it was a life raft. Other students whispered about him. Some kept their distance out of fear, some out of curiosity. But nobody tried to go near him. Nobody except Lily. Without hesitation, without overthinking, without fear of the unfamiliar sadness wrapped around him, she walked straight toward Ethan with the boldness of someone who believed even the coldest winter could be warmed by a simple smile. The teachers watching from afar tensed. They knew Ethan's history. They expected him to push her away or retreat behind his silence. But Lily simply stood in front of him and held out a homemade sandwich wrapped in crinkled foil. And something happened. Something so small it almost went unnoticed. The corner of Ethan's lips twitched. It wasn't a smile, not yet, but it was the first flicker of life he had shown in months. Teachers froze. One even dropped their coffee cup. Lily, unaware of the miracle she had sparked, continued talking in her usual run-on, breathless way. She told him about her missing socks, her dad's terrible cooking, her bad habit of laughing at the worst possible moments, and her belief that anyone who looked sad probably needed an extra sandwich. Ethan stared at her. Then out of nowhere, he laughed. A soft, awkward, fragile sound. The kind of sound that breaks the shell someone has been trapped in for far too long. Lily's eyes widened. "Oh, wow," she whispered, as if she had just witnessed magic. Teachers stared, students gasped, and Marcus Carter, who had rushed out of the car because he saw Lily approaching his son, froze in place. His phone nearly slipped from his hand. His son had laughed. He hadn't heard that sound since his wife was alive. Not once, not even accidentally. And it came from a little girl he'd never seen. A girl wearing mismatched socks and a backpack patched with hand-stitched stars. From that moment on, everything began to shift. Ethan started following Lily around campus like a quiet shadow, drawn to her brightness the way wilted flowers turn toward sunlight. At first, teachers assumed it was temporary, an anomaly, a one-day breakthrough that would fade like a spark in the wind. But it didn't fade. Each day, Ethan showed more signs of returning to life. He still didn't speak, but he communicated in the way his eyes softened around Lily, the way he leaned closer when she talked, the way he tried to mirror the things she did. Tiny gestures of hope. Daniel, however, had no idea who Lily had befriended. He only heard the nightly stories of the quiet boy who needs more smiles and assumed she meant a shy student. He didn't know she had unknowingly reached the heart of the wealthiest, most guarded child in the city. But the universe wasn't done weaving their stories together. One rainy afternoon, while Daniel waited for Lily outside school, an expensive black car stopped beside him. A suited driver stepped out and approached with an intimidating stare. Daniel instinctively stepped in front of Lily, ready to protect her until the tinted window rolled down, and Marcus Carter looked out. Daniel's breath caught in his chest. He recognized him instantly. The CEO everyone in the city knew by name. Marcus stepped out of the car, but his expression wasn't cold or arrogant. It was nervous, awkward, almost vulnerable. He introduced himself and said he wanted to talk. Daniel didn't expect the billionaire to thank him, not for anything he did, but for the daughter he raised. Marcus explained, voice cracking slightly, that Ethan hadn't spoken or laughed since the accident. Then he told him the unbelievable truth. Lily was the reason his son had come back to life. Daniel blinked, stunned, overwhelmed, suddenly aware of the magnitude of Lily's kindness. And when Lily tugged on Ethan's sleeve, and he responded with a soft, hesitant smile that reached his eyes, Daniel felt tears threatening to fall. What followed was a delicate, beautiful journey of two children healing together and two fathers learning what it meant to show up, to listen, to rebuild what had been broken. Marcus began spending more time with the kids, not as a billionaire, but as a dad trying to understand his son. Daniel helped him navigate the emotional world he had long ignored, and Lily, in her messy, magical way, was the glue holding it all together. Weeks passed, and something incredible happened. Ethan whispered his first new word, barely audible, almost lost in the wind, while Lily showed him how to make a paper airplane. He said her name, Lily. The entire world seemed to stop. Daniel covered his mouth with trembling hands. Marcus broke down for the first time in years, kneeling beside his son, with tears falling freely. From that day on, Ethan's progress accelerated. He began speaking again, slowly, cautiously, but with determination. His therapist was astonished. His teachers cried. And Marcus, who once measured life through profits and projections, began to measure it through moments. Small, ordinary, miraculous moments. But the story doesn't end with Ethan's healing. Something else grew quietly, tenderly, between the two fathers. A friendship rooted in gratitude, respect, and the shared responsibility of raising children who needed them more than anything. Daniel taught Marcus how to be present. Marcus helped Daniel with opportunities that eased the weight he carried alone. They became a strange but perfect team. Two men from opposite worlds brought together by the laughter of a child who had forgotten how to live. As seasons changed and Ethan grew stronger, the small community around them began to see something profoundly beautiful. Proof that healing doesn't always come from specialists or strategies. Sometimes it comes from someone unexpected, someone small, someone pure, someone like Lily. And when Ridgeway Academy held its winter talent show, Lily and Ethan stood together on stage, performing a skit Lily had written herself. Ethan spoke his lines softly but clearly, and when the crowd erupted in applause, he didn't flinch. He looked at Lily, and she squeezed his hand. Marcus cried openly in the front row. Daniel did too. Something had come full circle. If this story has touched your heart so far, please like, comment, and share. Your support helps us continue creating emotional, healing stories just for you. After the show, as snow fell in slow motion around the school courtyard, Marcus turned to Daniel and thanked him again. Not as a CEO, not as a man used to commanding rooms, but as a father who had regained the most precious thing he had ever lost, his son's voice. Daniel placed a gentle hand on his shoulder and told him something he learned through his own struggles, that children do not need perfection. They need presence, love, patience, and people who refuse to give up on them.